You're tuning into the Fearless Fridays with Marianne podcast. As a best-selling author, certified life coach, and speaker, I created this podcast to inspire, empower, and transform you from the inside out. From time to time, you may hear a solo episode, but for the most part, we will be joined by real-life guests who have overcome adversity. But as they have done the work, today they are thriving. So grab your pen and paper as we get started and learn firsthand tips and tricks to change the trajectory of your lives so we can live a free, fearless, and fabulous life. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Fearless Fridays with Marianne. I am your host, Marianne Rivera-Dannert, and today we have an amazing young lady with us, and we are going to learn some awesome information. So make sure to grab your pen and paper. And without further ado, let's bring her on. Hello, how are you?
I'm very well, Marianne.
So let's get started. Tell us your name and a little bit about yourself.
Sure. My name is Karmin Simone, and I am an abundant living coach. I say it that way because there are many very well-versed and well-known life coaches, but I like to put the abundant living before life coach because it kind of really targets and hones in on my focus and my goal, regardless of what's going on in people's lives. And my primary population is adult women veterans, and mothers with adult daughters.
Awesome. Beautiful. So first question, in getting to know you, how did your journey lead for you to become an abundant living coach and the founder of INR, Healing for Abundant Living? And can you tell us what INR stands for, if it stands for something?
Yeah, I'll keep it as brief as I can because that's a whole week's worth of discussion. But to summarize my journey, I believe my entire life has prepared me for where I am now and being able to come alongside other women. I am a family systems person. I am a licensed clinical social worker by profession. And I got into that profession because I just really had a heart's passion and a heart's desire to have a healthy family and to be a part of a healthy family as an adult. However that was going to look. And so through college, I also was in the Army and retired from the Army Reserve. I did some medical types of things in the Army. I did social work in the Army. And so always had a focus on some aspects of families. And then upon retiring from the Army, I worked for the federal government in various aspects of working again with families. And then once I retired from the federal government, you kind of refire, as people say, you don't completely retire.
Right.
And I still wanted to have my hands in families in some way, but not in the clinical sense. And so that led me into life coaching. And as a woman, I can identify with some aspects of a woman's journey. And so I continue to come alongside women. And being a woman veteran myself, I can identify with some aspects of that journey. And then I have an adult daughter who now has a daughter of her own. And so I can look at life as a woman and a daughter from various spheres. And so that's where I am at this point. The particular business overarching title or name came from my own personal journey, working on my own inner healing. To be able to live my life out abundantly, not really realizing that we have some healing ourselves sometimes that we need to do before we can really help others walk out their journey. And so I was very focused on my own healing journey and then being able to authentically come alongside other women and support them in theirs and accomplishing their goals to live their life abundantly.
I love that. And thank you so much for your service.
Thank you. Thank you.
Excuse me. So I know you're passionate about family, women, daughters, but what specifically led you to focus on women and adult daughters? Was there something that was lacking, something that was missing that you noticed?
Yeah, I as a daughter of a mother who, didn't have the best foundation herself. and being able to provide a stable environment for me as a single mother. She did the very best that she could. But as I got older, I began to realize that there were some things not just lacking in our relationship, to no fault of my mother. She provided what she had and what she knew and did the best that she could. But when you know better, you have the opportunity to do better. And so I wanted to do better with my own daughter, and as we went through her adolescent years, we're through that.
I can relate.
Oh my. That's another podcast. She's a young woman herself now. I can do some comparison. I can look at my own journey with my mother. My mother is now deceased. And look at the journey that I've had thus far with my 30 plus daughter. I don't know if she wants me to tell her specific age, so I'll just say 30 plus. And for whatever reason, this year in February, I think it had to do with probably three things. One, it was, February is a month we primarily look at love and the love relationships in our lives. That's also my grandmother's birthday, who's deceased. And just thinking back on her and our relationship and her relationship with her daughter. She had two daughters. One is still living. And then as we're moving towards Mother's Day in May, really looking at my relationship with my mother and my own daughter. And so it led me to really hone in on improving and enhancing my own relationship with my daughter, and really leaning in with persons that I'm already connected with as they desire to help them have healthier mother-daughter relationships and just be healthier as women in general.
Are there some strategies that, you focus on, or maybe you can provide one tip for either the adult daughter or the mother to implement as they're listening to our podcast?
Yeah, it sounds easier than it is as I'm going to articulate it. Because it has a lot to do with where the relationship currently is, where it has been, and where the two desire for it to go, because it does take two. But I like to use an acronym called BOND. And within that are some strategies. And the B stands for just being able to build a better relationship, being able to come closer together as two adult women, being open and honest with where they have been and where they currently are and where they want to go. Really observing those things that are going well and those things that can really use some improvement. And then the end is being able to really identify the personal needs and then the needs within the relationship. So it's really some goal strategy, identification, goal setting, which in essence is basic. But when you're looking at relationships, it can be pretty intimate and pretty challenging. And the D is being able to define and design what's going to be specifically helpful for those two individuals, as individuals and then as a group. And I say group because they're two people. So it's really a goal setting strategy that's I use is specialized for individuals and then for the two to come together.
I love that. So it's build,
observe,
need,
and then needs, and then define, and designing.
I love that. So as a woman of faith, how do your spiritual beliefs play a role in your coaching and guidance?
Yeah, it's interesting you would ask. I think that what I've come to find out now is I better understand who I am, and how, not just myself, but how we have been created as women. And there's some things within us as women that the world needs. And we have to know how to walk those out, not feeling ashamed, not feeling embarrassed, not trying to compare ourselves with other women. And in this world, that's a challenging thing to not do. But knowing that we're uniquely designed for a specific purpose. There's a population and a group of women that I've been designed to connect and to engage with, just as there is for you. And we're not going to all do that the same way. And then, our temperaments, our personalities, they're for a specific reason. Those that can be a little bit more in your face, and those that can be a little bit more direct and, seem to be not as bothered by other things that bother other people. It's for a specific purpose, and we all need each other.
I love that. So you are a TEDx speaker. Tell us about that journey. How did that come about? And share some highlights and some insights from your talk.
Yeah, that was totally a surprise and nothing I planned. It was one of those things I was designed for and didn't know it. We are ever learning and ever growing.
That's awesome.
So again, around the same time this year in February was a big month for me. I joined my local I live in Frederick, Maryland, my Frederick County Chamber of Commerce. I had been thinking about doing it for a couple of years, and I said, I'll just go ahead and step out and do it. So I joined them in February, and every month they send out a newsletter. So I read the February one, I read the March one, and that April newsletter, it hit me a little different. So I was reading through the April newsletter, and I tend to be I skim through, and then if something really seems to be important, I'll go scroll back up and read it in more detail. So I was skimming through the newsletter, and about midway through the newsletter, we have a local private college here, and I saw that they were offering TEDx, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And I was just getting ready to get off the paragraph, and I felt inside, go back and read it again. That usually means it's something I need to do.
Right.
So I read it again and clicked on to the link and just really felt that I needed to go ahead and apply for it. I have not had any of that type of speaking experience. I've spoken a lot in the government settings and military, even in my church and some community things, but nothing to that magnitude. So needless to say, I was quite nervous. So that was on a Thursday, and the deadline was the following week for submission. And so I had to scurry around and get everything together that they required for submission and got it in on time. And very quickly, I received an email back saying I had been accepted.
Wow.
Well, I was not expecting that. So I started panicking.
Wow.
I was like, well, I stepped out here. What am I going to do now? So I called the coordinator, and she shared some information with me. And then that just made me even more nervous.
I can imagine.
I needed some help. And so I had a group of business coaches that I connected with. And so I contacted one of them who connected me with another person, and she helped me to get prepared. Now, needless to say, unbeknownst to me, and it was probably a good thing, I did not know that this was something that most people take months to prepare for. I only had 2.5 weeks.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
So I was on pins and needles.
Wow.
But she was awesome. She helped me every step of the way. She incrementally broke everything down, and we got it all together and rehearsed and rehearsed and rehearsed and rehearsed till I had TEDx coming out of my eyes. I was like seeing it in my sleep. And then we had the day, and I made it through. I didn't pass out.
Wow. That's amazing, though.
It was looking back, it was an experience that I needed. It was an experience that stretched me. It was an experience that just enhanced my confidence in what I have been created to do, to speak into other women's lives. And that TEDx is now available on YouTube.
That's awesome. And I'm going to make sure to grab the copy of the link and put it on the show notes.
Well, thank you. Hopefully it will continue to help some mothers and their adult daughters.
Yeah, definitely. So what are some challenges that you often find between mothers and daughters during, for the healing process?
I think there's 3 main things that I can identify at this point that are probably common to a lot of challenging mother and daughter relationships. One is the similarities between the mother and the daughter. There are some things that personality-wise, emotionally, and even sometimes behaviorally, sometimes they're mirror images of one another, but they're not willing to admit that. And so that makes them clash. But then also there are sometimes some unhealed areas, some things that have not been forgiven, some things that have been held over the other whether it's the mother or the daughter, where one has felt some injustice to some degree, and they have not released the other person from those things. And so there are some roadblocks or inhibitors into their relationship being as healthy as it could possibly be. The third one is just really self-awareness. Sometimes we, as we have probably heard in many ways, we don't see ourselves as other people see us.
True.
And so sometimes just by this virtue of having a better self-awareness, we're able to see how our communication or lack of communication, or how our unhealthy behavior is impacting the relationship.
And I think it's so hard because, as mothers, we've been through things, we've been through life, and we faced challenges and adversity and so forth. So we don't want our children to suffer through those things. But at the same time, it's kind of like, you have to remember, when I was that age, how things were for you and things like that. So is there like, a tip or two that you can share to start that, conversation, in knowing how to like put yourself into other person's shoes from their perspective, to enhance the relationship?
Yeah, for sure. We're our own individuals. We have some commonalities, we have some similarities. There's some things that we inherit from our parents, even when we have not been raised by our parents. There are just some biological, genetic things that are within us, even some spiritual, some things. And so being able to allow the individual stand in their own shoes, but lead and guide them, knowing that at some point in their life, they are going to find their way. And that can be scary. Because as you said, you don't want them to fall. You don't want them to flounder. You don't want them to experience things that, as in hindsight, we know that they could avoid.
Right.
But they have to find their own way. And the best way to assist them with that is to be there, and to be able to provide healthy supports for them and guidance. But for the adult child, knowing that when I fall, that you're going to be there as a listening ear.
I love that. So out of all the possible names and coaches, niches that you could have selected, why abundant living?
Because I believe that that's what we're created for. And we are going to have difficulties, challenges, trials in this world. And we're even going to have some setbacks. But every step of the way, each step is meant to be better. And so, what's abundant for me, what fills me, what makes my life complete is different for you and for other people. But finding that and knowing what that is, there's a freedom in there that you just really can't find anywhere else. And so being able to identify those stepping stones and being able to identify what brings abundance into my life and how I can continue to walk that out is just something that I haven't really seen a lot of people offer.
I love that. So what are you looking forward to, and what are you working on for 2024?
Oh my goodness. I am looking forward to being able to reach women in a wider way. And so being able to do some online classes or workshops, however they feel that those resonate with them. Expanding an online Facebook group that I currently have where we come together once a week. And just really connecting with other women through social media. Social media was one of those things I think sometimes generationally we're not always sure about, but taking that plunge and taking a leap of faith and just doing some of those things, that because I am in one location doesn't mean that I can't connect and reach other women in other locations.
Yeah, that's true. So you are on the Fearless Fridays podcast. How are you living a fearless life?
Yeah, by taking those leaps, like by doing the TEDx and just, stepping out of my own comfort zone. There's some things that I'm very comfortable with and very comfortable with doing and will say yes at a drop of a dime. And then there's other things like, let me think about that for a little bit. And so when I get to that, let me think about it, really being honest with myself about what's making me pause. And if it's something that's realistic, or if it's something that because of something that's happened in the past that I'm hesitant about. And allowing myself to be all of who I have been created to be. You know, the world has identified us as women and told us who we're supposed to be, how we're supposed to be, look, and all these other kinds of things. But we are who we are, and I'm just going to work with what I have.
Awesome. Beautiful. So as we get ready to wrap up, is there anything else that you would like to share or mention that we have not had a chance to talk about?
Yeah, I just want to encourage your listeners to, continue to step out. There are so many new things awaiting us. And this, I think COVID was an opportunity for many of us to see what more we could do, even though we couldn't get out and maybe couldn't get connected to some of the resources and things in the stores were scarce. But we, as a generational aspect and even in a world perspective, we were able to do more with less. And so I think hopefully that's a sign to show us that some of the things that we relied on, depended on, we really didn't need. Yeah. And so, I want to encourage women and other listeners to step out of their comfort zone and to lean into the totality of who they are and to embrace who they are. We're beautifully created. And there's something that each and every one of us has been designed to do.
I love that. And where can our audience and our viewers connect with you, learn more about you?
Yeah, so I have working on a website, so that'll come sometime, hopefully the earlier part of next year. But for right now, I'm on Linktree. So if you just type my name, Google it. If you're on Facebook, and just type Coach K, Karmin Simone. I have a private page. I have a Facebook page. I have a business Facebook page. I'm on LinkedIn. It's Karmin Jenkins. So pretty easy to find.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Marianne, and have a wonderful holiday season.
Thank you. You too.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the Fearless Fridays with Marianne podcast. Make sure to stay connected with us, and you can find us on Facebook at MRD Empowerment Solutions or on Instagram as Marianne Rivera Dannert. You can also visit our website at mariannerivera.com. As always, you are fearless, you are fabulous, you are a priority, and you matter.